Hello, folks. This is Joe from MIGeekScene. I'm here at Jafax with voice actor David Vincent.
Hello.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Welcome to Jafax.
Yeah, thanks.
How's the con been treating you so far?
Oh, fantastic, man. I've had a great time. They put on a fantastic show here. It's a great facility. The fans are incredible. The staff's been great. So very, very well done. Really enjoying it.
All right, well, folks, I've been hoping to get Mr. Vincent on on my YouTube channel for quite some time because I met him at AlmaCon briefly last year. Put out that notice that, yes, I'm interested in interviewing you. And he graciously said yes, but then it was quite some time before he came back to Michigan. So I was very thankful that you came back.
Yeah,
so it works
absolutely.
out. For those of you who don't know who he is, like I mentioned earlier, he's an anime and video game voice actor. Well, he's a voice actor in general.
Yeah.
Roles that he's famous for: Jin Kisaragi from Blaze Blue, Marshal Law from Tekken, Senketsu from Kill La Kill, and Grimmjow Jaggerjack from Bleach.
Yes.
All right, but before you got into voice acting, we'll just go back into the past.
Yes.
You began in journalism. So what area of journalism were you planning on focusing on before you switched off to theater?
You really do ask interesting questions. That's a great question. I got my degree in journalism, but my emphasis was in meteorology. And I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. I spent my young childhood in Tacoma, Washington, just south of Seattle. And when I was there, I became fascinated with the weather patterns because there was a weather anchor there by the name of Steve Poole. And I loved him. I thought he was great, and I really enjoyed the way that he taught the weather, in the newscast. So I became fascinated with it, and moved to Denver when I was in high school, and then I wound up going to the University of Colorado in Boulder. And so when I was there, I was getting my degree in journalism, but at the same time, I made my emphasis in meteorology because that's what I wanted to do. And I wound up doing an internship with the NBC affiliate in Denver, and I worked directly with the weather anchor there. His name was Mike Nelson.
Okay.
Who was just phenomenal and really taught me a lot about anchoring the weather in the news and whatnot. So it was great.
Okay, but you didn't go into journalism. You
I
went
didn't.
to theater, stand-up, and sketch comedy. So
I did.
In that area, what do you prefer? What did you prefer, stand-up or sketch comedy?
They're both different, believe it or not.
Sure.
I mean, it's really different. I've never been so nervous in my life as when it's just you and a microphone up on stage. The first time that I did it in New York. I moved to New York City after I graduated from college and hit the stage, and I did do all of that. But as far as like what my favorite is, I have to say sketch comedy, because I just think the absurdness that you can create with the sketch comedy, I just think is a blast. And anytime you do a sketch, even if it's the same sketch, it's going to come out different every single time, and I love that. But I mean, it's all great. I'm a big fan of comedy. I love comedy, and
we'll go into that, sir.
Awesome. Yeah.
But all right, so obviously you were doing stand-up. Were there any bits any particular bits that you were focusing on? What was a bit that you threw out?
I don't know. I couldn't recite my bits now, but I mean, it's been a while. But I would do stuff where I would just make fun of daily life in New York.
Okay.
I lived in Manhattan, and when I lived there, I loved this guy. His name, the mayor of New York, was Rudy Giuliani.
Yes.
And so, and I thought he was a fabulous mayor. He came in and just was, his leadership was great. When I moved to New York, Times Square was very seedy, and by the time I left, it was Disneyland. And so we just really did a lot to kind of clean up New York, and I enjoyed it. So I would make fun of him. Even though I think he's great, I would make fun of him. I would do bits where he would be taking the window washers. There used to be the window washers when you stopped your car in Manhattan. These guys were like gangsters. They'd come up and wash your window, and if you didn't pay them, they would take and smack your window and break your window. And I mean, that was New York back then, And so I would do bits making fun of stuff like that, and just crazy stuff.
So who are your comedic influences?
Comedic influences,
whether through stand-up or sketch.
I would have to say old school was Gallagher. There was a comedian, a 1980s Gallagher, and I don't know if he's still alive or not, but I heard, the last I had heard, he's not doing too well. But he was a huge influence on me growing up. I loved his comedy. I loved his slapsticks and
Watermelon smashing.
the watermelon smashing. Yeah, I was a huge fan of his growing up. I loved Red Skelton.
Okay.
So I go back to the old school comedians. Those guys were huge influences on me growing up. Red Skelton was a big one.
So, like, were you going back to old school comedians and stuff? Or, like, were you watching, like, variety shows like Dean Martin and...
Well, yeah, and then when I was growing up, they would have specials. Red Skelton was still doing some stuff. And then, of course, the old reruns of the stuff that he did back in his
Okay, so
heyday.
I'm not dating you, like, well, what... Back when
I was a child of the 80s.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I was watching like Dean Martin variety show when it first came out.
Yeah, I
in the 60s,
I'm like, I'm like a vampire. I haven't aged. I'm really 50 years old. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not.
Are there any particular comedians that you're following today, since you're a big fan of comedy?
Actually, he's a friend of mine. There's a guy named Harland Williams, and he's done stand-up for years and years and years and years. A good buddy of mine, Michael Rosenbaum, is actually getting into the stand-up scene. Roberto Rad is another friend of mine. These may be unknown to you, some of you guys who are watching. Harland Williams is, he's actually he's famous. So is Rosenbaum. They're both famous. Rosenbaum, he's in Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know what character he plays, but he's also, you'll know him as from Smallville. If you watch Smallville, he was Lex Luthor in Smallville. Harland Williams, he's been in a ton of stuff. The one that may stick out to just to jog your memory, if you watched Dumb and Dumber, he was the cop that drank the pee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
so that's
now
Harland Williams. Okay, and like his stand-up comedy is, for me, like I'm on the floor when I watch him, and he's so smooth, and his delivery is just so polished. It's effortless to him, and I just think the guy is hysterical. So I love his style of comedy. Norm Macdonald is another one that I love his style of comedy. It's just so understated, and he says stuff that is just hilarious to me. I mean, the list goes on. Vargas Mason, actually went to college with him. He's a stand-up comedian. Dude is a comedic genius, and his career is just snowballing now. So, yeah.
I remember Harland Williams was on Conan O'Brien, talking to Conan on the couch, and he dropped the line, "powder-covered broccoli baby," and I was like, what? That makes no sense, but it was hilarious.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, he's Harland Williams.
See, that's remember him from when you dropped that name. I have not thought about him in a long time because I'm a big fan of comedy too. So
yeah, he's great. If you ever get the chance, because he travels doing stand-up. If you ever see him coming to your town, go and see him. You will not regret it. The guy is hysterical.
Okay, so we're going to, obviously I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this interview, you're an anime voice actor as well.
Yes.
Well, Steve Bloom was your gateway into voice acting, so...
No, well, I mean, that's kind of been misconstrued a little bit.
I thought he was the one who got you into doing the anime voice acting.
He is. You are right. In doing your research, you're absolutely correct. He was the one that introduced me to anime.
Okay. But my question to you is, what was your first exposure to anime as a regular person, not as a voice actor?
As a voice actor. As a regular person, before I ever got into voice acting, my first exposure to anime when I was a little kid, I watched Star Blazers.
Okay.
That was on TV, and I loved Star Blazers. It was my favorite show. And then, of course, Speed Racer. I mean, that's kind of a given for anybody in my generation. We all grew up on that. Voltron, of course. All of those, but definitely Star Blazers sticks out to me. That was absolutely. I was fascinated with that show, and I loved it when I was a little kid.
Have you, by chance, since not necessarily used your status, but used your connections as a voice actor, reached out to any of the cast from Star Blazers, like Amy Howard Wilson?
No, actually,
you know what?
Nova? I haven't. That's actually such a great... you're like giving me suggestions. I should probably do that.
Well, because...
You know who I did, though? And this isn't an anime, but it's so funny that you said that because there is an actress, and I remember I was big into Croft Superstars. And any kid who grew up in the late 70s and early 80s will know Croft Superstars. So if you're watching this... Croft Superstars, Google it, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But it was this little kids show, and there was a show called The Lost Saucer. And I'm sorry, my phone is going off during the interview. It was called The Lost Saucer, and Ruth Buzzy and Jim Nabors starred in it. And Ruth Buzzy was so nice and I loved this show as a little kid. I'm talking, I was like 8 years old, and I saw her on Facebook, and I friended her on Facebook, and I just said, hey, I grew up watching The Lost Saucer, and she's classically trained actor. She's done all this stuff. And she was so nice and wrote me back, and she's just like, wow, that's so nice to hear from you. Thank you so much. And I love stuff like that. It was so cool to be able to reach out and actually connect with somebody who was a part of my childhood.
Oh, the reason why I brought up Amy Howard Wilson, because she wasn't this year, I guess, due to scheduling conflicts, but she's usually one of our, well, I don't work for Jafax, but one of the reoccurring guests for Jafax. She played Nova on
Star Blazers. If she was here, I would have geeked out and I would have fanboyed out over her.
And she's super nice.
Is she?
Oh, super nice.
Oh, man. I'd have been all over her like a cheap suit. Not that way, just being like fanboying.
Well, your first anime role was in Ghost in the Shell. So what are your thoughts on the recent live action film?
I haven't seen it.
Neither have I, so next
yeah,
question.
so I can't comment on how well the production was or anything along those lines. I know that they caught a lot of flack for casting, wasn't it Scarlett Johansson? I mean, I don't know. I'll say this. I don't know enough about it to comment and to give an educated comment on it. So I'll step back from that one.
Oh, there goes the next series of 15 questions I had.
No, sorry. I'm blowing it for you, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot. All right.
No, I'm sorry.
No, the next question actually is, you are the narrator for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I am, yes.
What are your thoughts on that show? Because that show is so random.
It is bizarre.
Yes, one would say.
See what I did there? It's awesome. I love the fact that I get to be a part of such an awesome series. I work with amazing Tony Oliver's directing now, it's just it's a great series to be a part of. I'm thrilled to be a part of a franchise like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I mean, it's actually, I think, the oldest manga in Japan, longest running manga, I should say, not oldest, the longest running manga. It's been going since the 80s. And then, for me, it's just a lot of fun. I love the fact that they have throwbacks to the 80s and the musicians from the 80s, that I grew up with. So it's
that actually brings up, it was not necessarily a question, but more of a comment.
Yeah.
I do think it was cool that Yes's Roundabout is one of the closing
theme
songs for that. Because I was at work, and then when I'm taking care, and I work at the hospital, so between patients, I obviously take care of patients, and when they leave, I have to clean up the room so that way the next patient can come in and stuff like that. So as I'm cleaning up the room, I'm like, all right, Adult Swim's on, because I work third shift, so I turned on the TV, and then I just happened to hear I was like, is that Yes?
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? And I was like, oh, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because I know that show came out in, I want to say the 80s or at least the 90s. I mean, this is the recent reboot that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So that show's had at least a few adaptations, and I was like, yes, so that caught me off guard. But another show, and I actually recently watched it for the first time in preparation for this interview. I watched all of Kill la Kill. So I really enjoyed that show.
I thought it was great.
But more of a commentary than a question.
Yeah.
I do see the parallel between... No. Actually, I'm not going to get to that one. I think it's funny that... Not funny necessarily, but it was creepy how Ragyo was super gropey all over. Sorry, folks, spoilers, but super gropey over pretty much everyone.
Yeah. What's funny to me about that is because Ragyo's voice actress, I know her well. She's a friend of mine, Laura Post. And Laura Post is so not Ragyo. And I just thought that she did such a brilliant job because that character is so creepy and it's out there, and I look at it and I see the wonderful writing and the wonderful characters that Trigger had put together, in this show.
It's a quality show.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't say that
super
because you're
quality
just
show. Yeah, and but also, to give kudos to Laura, how she really breathed life into that character as well. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I caught the bloopers. Yeah. So I liked the Susie and the Banshees Depeche Mode when you were powering up. So that was a nice little reference that was thrown in there. I was not expecting that at all.
That's right. Forgot about that.
But what I wanted to say was, and this will segue into the next thing, I can see a parallel theme between two of your former projects, Kill la Kill and Tekken, because both have very rich and powerful characters that throw on over-the-top fighting tournaments,
Yeah.
which would be Heihachi Mishima and Satsuki Kiryuin.
Yes.
But now we're going into video games a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to talk to you about Blaze Blue and Tekken, but while I was doing my research on you, I found that you're involved in one of my top 5 games of all time. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You played Richter Belmont.
Yes.
So my question for that was, did you play, were you the voice for Richter in the original PS version or the PlayStation Vita remake or PlayStation Plus, the handheld that came out?
I believe it was the handheld.
Okay.
I don't think, and I could be wrong on this, but I think that I came in for the handheld. It was
So
like,
you weren't doing it in the 90s when this game came out?
No.
Okay.
No. I came in, I think it was around 2006, 2007, right around that area, time frame, 2008 maybe, I don't know, but it was in that time period that's when I started voicing Richter Belmont.
Okay, because I noticed that when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, that's one of my favorite games of all time. You mentioned Tony Oliver earlier. He was the Dark Priest Shaft in that game. So
Yeah.
when I met him at AlmaCon earlier this year, I was like, thank you so much for that. He's like, oh, thank you. It was just so random. But now we're going to go into some random things about you.
Yeah.
So obviously, one of your main characters, Marshal Law from Tekken, was based on Bruce Lee. And you're a big fan of Bruce Lee.
Yes.
Any favorite movies?
Enter the Dragon. Hands down is my all-time favorite Bruce Lee movie. I probably watched that movie 1,000 times as a kid. Any kid, that watched everything, I think that Bruce Lee even translates to today. Any kid that watches Bruce Lee and watches, just how masterful he was, and just the theatrics of those movies, they're gonna get it. And I loved it. I loved Bruce Lee, and Enter the Dragon was my favorite.
He's transcended,
Yeah.
from being just a regular actor from back in the day,
Yeah.
I would agree with you that he's pretty much
a legend.
He's an icon.
He's an icon, absolutely.
He's imprinted into our psyche, I would say, as far as pop culture goes,
Yeah.
especially for martial arts.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
he gets name dropped often.
Well, he's the one that introduced it to Western culture. It wasn't a thing until, like, at least in our
Behind the doors and teaching it to Westerners was highly frowned upon.
Exactly. And he's the one that really introduced us to it and did it extremely well.
Oh yeah, I was a huge fan of Bruce Lee when I was young as well. So I would definitely have to say Enter the Dragon was my favorite movie too.
Yeah.
There's just so much with that movie.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't segue into the next question, but however, you and Chris Sabat are in the Last Remnant video game, and you've attended conventions together. Have you been pranked by him? And if so, what happened?
I love Chris. He is a hilarious dude. But I have to say, I have kept my phone in my pocket, and I have kept it away from him because I have heard things about what he does. No, I actually have to say that I've, knock on wood, I've been very safe, and I have not been pranked by Sabat yet.
Until he watches
If he sees this, you're not getting me, homeboy.
You're also a fan of Cowboy Bebop.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite episode?
Oh, gosh. I can't.
Yeah, I don't throw out a lot of favorites, but when I saw that, I was like, I have to talk to him about that talk to you about that because I love Cowboy Bebop.
I don't know. Well, what's your favorite?
Oh, I would have to say easily one of my favorites is Ballad of Fallen Angels when Spike meets Vicious for the first time, at least when people are watching it for the first time. It's the 5th episode when they meet up in the church.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you. Okay, so I can't think of like my personal favorite episode, but I will tell you one thing that sticks out in my mind for Cowboy Bebop. Aside from the cast, you have Mary Elizabeth, you've got Steve Bloom, of course,
Bo Billingsley.
and Bo Billingsley. He's awesome, dude.
Have not met him.
Oh, he's a cool dude. He's a super nice guy.
I met Steve. He's awesome.
Steve's great. Steve, and just like you said, Steve is the one actually that introduced me into the world of anime.
Yes.
And then I've worked with Mary Elizabeth on a number of different projects, and she's just one of the most lovely people that you work with.
I would like to meet her.
But I was at Anime Expo, and this is off of Cowboy Bebop. And I walked up, and I don't think he does it anymore, but this happened years ago. And did you ever hear of Man-Faye?
No, I've not heard of Man-Faye.
Man-Faye was this guy that dressed up as Faye Valentine.
Okay.
And he was very hairy. I'll say that.
Nice.
And he wore the outfit with his very hairy body, and it was pretty obnoxious. But it was very funny.
Thong suspenders too?
Yes, the thong suspender thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be your favorite episode?
That would be my favorite episode of Cowboy Bebop, yes. Is going, oh, it's pretty funny, though. Yeah.
Now, granted, yes, I'm not trying to be Mr. Name Dropper. I mentioned Steve Bloom earlier.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So I do know that one of his favorite impressions is Harvey Firestein. Do you have any favorite impressions when you're just joking around? Like go-to ones?
Yeah, it's Steve Bloom. Hi, I'm Steve Bloom. No, I'm just kidding. I see, that's the thing about being a voice actor is we're comic. I mimic people constantly. And it's just something that I've always done. And Steve, I can see doing a perfect Harvey Firestein. But I mean, gosh, I do my Steve Bloom. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. I mean, get to the chopper. Get to the chopper. I don't know. Gosh, there's just too many of them. Sean Connery. There's all kinds of different impressions that I do. I don't know.
I'm not one for impressions. I meant like Harvey Firestein. It's not even that good.
There was a guy in New York. Okay, and I'll tell you this guy.
That was Harvey Firestein?
No, it wasn't. Yeah, Harvey Firestein's in New York. But there was this guy in New York, and he was a friend of mine. And he was the most interesting cat. He would just come over, and and this is when I was young and single, and me and the fellows would just go and hang out and play video games and do whatever, that early 20-somethings do, at that age. And so we would sit there, and there was this guy that would come, and Ted, I think his name was. But and this is when I was living in Manhattan, and he would come and he would just hang out. And we would be all playing video games and being loud and whatnot, and he would just kind of sit in the corner by himself. And so I've done this impression of him ever since. But he would just sit there by himself, and he was a New Yorker, and he would just be like, not saying a word, and then all of a sudden it would get quiet in the room, and he'd just look over at us and go, "The other day I was at the thrift store, and I found a free T-shirt." And so I just automatically, he had to be there, but I would automatically just start talking like Ted. And so I would always talk like Ted from New York and find free T-shirts and all sorts of fun stuff. It was very, very random.
Well, speaking of random interviews that you've done, I did watch the hilarious, serious interview that you conducted with Maname Matt.
Oh, at Youmacon, right?
I don't know where that was.
I don't know where it was. Yes.
How many takes did it? How many takes did you have to do to complete that interview? Because when he was pretty much insulting you throughout that whole thing.
Oh no, that wasn't. That was in Louisiana. I think we were in Louisiana.
It was supposed to be like between two ferns.
Yes,
the way that was set up.
He was great. He was great, man. Maname, if you're seeing this, dude, that was hilarious, man. I love the way it turned out.
I love the awkward hug.
Yeah. No, I thought it was very well done. I mean, the dude's funny. I enjoyed it. I thought it turned out great. The awkwardness totally translated on camera.
Was that like a one-take thing, or was
it? No, we did it. We had to do a couple of takes, but I mean, I like comedy. I'm big on comedy, man. And so, I thought that he wrote it out very well. I thought that he did it really well. He executed it really well. And kudos to him. I thought that was great. It was really well done. I enjoyed doing it with him again, and I think he's moving to L.A. So if he moves to L.A., he needs to look me up, and we'll do some more fun stuff together. I thought that was great.
All right. Well, one of the interesting things that I learned about you once mentioned that if a show came out and you had the opportunity to do it, you would love to be Lionel from Thundercats.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yes. Well, I mean,
who wouldn't want to be Lionel from Thundercats? Chitara. I mean, forget about it. That would be incredible.
I would say Burgess Meredith would not want to be Lionel from.
No, I don't. You're right. He wouldn't be able to do it. But no, I mean, he's just. It's classic. Give me sight beyond sight. I would love that. It's a great series. I grew up. I used to race home from school when I was in the 8th grade to go and watch Thundercats. Thunder! I loved it.
That was a great show.
Yeah.
But that actually leads into my next question. Any other favorite cartoons from growing up? Oh, believe me, because if you're an 80s kid, we can shoot the breeze.
We can do 80s. Yeah, man. It was such a huge animation was a big influence on me growing up in the 80s. I loved everything. I loved Thundercats.
Yes.
I was huge into Thundercats. I loved Super Friends.
Okay, yes.
That was a huge one for me. Star Blazers, we talked about that earlier. That was great. I loved... what's that?
Silverhawks?
I never watched Silverhawks.
G.I. Joe, Transformers?
G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man. I watched all those. And I was really big into Looney Tunes.
Okay,
and
yes.
Bugs Bunny. And then Disney, the Disney animation shorts, I loved those as well. The Pluto, the Donald Ducks, all that stuff.
And Jiminy Cricket? Not
Jiminy Cricket
I'm
so
no
much.
fool, no siree, I want to live to be 103.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Holy cow. I can't believe you just pulled that out. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
No siree, I want to live to 103. Totally. I love that.
That was one of my favorite things when growing up. I would watch the reruns for that, like on the Disney Channel, like those little shorts and stuff like that.
Yeah, I loved those. Those were my favorite. I absolutely loved those growing up. I can't believe you just pulled that out. That's awesome. I'm impressed.
Well, I've just been a fan of animation. That's always been my thing. And, obviously we're having a conversation, so I'm just going to pull that out. Not necessarily scripted, but yeah.
That's great.
I haven't got to talk to somebody about that in a long time who actually knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I learned my lessons from Jiminy Cricket when growing up. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But the sad thing is, where would one be able to find those? It's not like they're releasing them on DVD.
That's so funny is because I've got a 3-year-old at home, and I would like to show her that stuff as well, and I wouldn't even know where to begin to even start looking for that type of animation.
I mean, at least with the Warner Brothers stuff, they are releasing some of that stuff in DVD collections.
Yeah.
I guess depending by years and decades, they'll release that. But for the Disney stuff, the old vault stuff.
Yeah.
Nowhere
That's
to be
stuff
found.
you're not going to get it. Yeah, like the Jiminy Cricket. I don't know if we can find that now.
I mean, that's just money to be printed for them right there.
I know.
Especially for people like us.
I'd be all over it. I mean, people in our generation, I would buy that.
Oh, yeah.
Today, if
Hands
it was
down.
available.
As we're wrapping up this interview, I wanted to touch upon some of the newer stuff that you're in right now.
Yeah.
You are in the new web series
CONfessionals.
Yes. Your character has not appeared yet, but let's talk about your character, Cash Johnson, because I've watched
Cash Jackson.
Yeah. Sorry. I've watched the first 3 episodes of it, so I'm just waiting for you to appear, because you're in the last 2, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm in the last 2 episodes.
So what can you talk about his character that won't necessarily be spoilers?
That's not going to be spoilers. Cash Jackson runs Giganticon.
Yes.
And Giganticon is the biggest convention in America. And Cash Jackson, what I can say about him is, gosh, he's a Texan. He loves America, and he loves conventions. And he's just got a heart of gold. And I'll leave it at that without giving away any spoilers. But make sure to watch it. Cash Jackson he's the man.
I'm looking forward to your interactions with Riley Starr and K. Mickey Malcolm.
K. Mickey Malcolm.
Played by J. Michael Tatum, who happens to be one of the guests at Jafax
man, I gotta say, honestly, in watching and going through the first few episodes of CONfessionals, it's just ridiculous. It's so funny. I love the fact that they Fairy Tale becomes Pixie Story or something like that, and J. Michael Tatum is K. Mickey Malcolm, and Bryce Papenbrook is Reese Babinflock.
Yes.
And I think it's hilarious. The whole concept of it was hilarious. I was thrilled to be a part of it.
I've been entertained by the 3 episodes that I've seen.
Yeah.
So, I liked when there was a theme of manservants being treated poorly whenever K. Mickey Malcolm was on screen.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
So
it was hilarious. And again, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but that scene where Tatum has his arm on the wall like this, I was on the floor. I was roaring. It was hysterical. I thought the whole scene just played brilliantly.
Well, where could one find the episodes of CONfessionals?
Great question. Right now, you will actually be able to see it exclusively on a Facebook group. It is a Facebook group called Anime Unlocked. Just go to Facebook, in your search bar, 2 separate words, Anime Unlocked, and search that, and you'll see it pop up. I think it's the first one that pops up now. And just think of achievement unlocked for like video games,
It
right?
has a key.
Anime
It's a white
unlocked.
key
There's a
and a blue
little
box.
key, and there's a blue background, and you'll see it. But at any rate, it's exclusively in this Facebook group, and this Facebook group is really, really cool because it's growing leaps and bounds. But ultimately, what it is it's a community that's being built where voice actors and industry professionals are commingling with fans. It's a safe space. It's all ages where people can come, interact with each other. Fans can talk about different animes, give each other suggestions, talk about all kinds of fun stuff, show their artwork, whatever it is that they want to do, and then also interact with industry professionals, voice actors, and whatnot within that group. It's a lot of fun, and being a part of it for me as a voice actor, I think is really cool because I'm able to interact with fans. From my perspective, I'm able to interact with fans there on a different level than I am just on my normal Facebook, because I'm able to, number one, be with my colleagues and then be with our fans, and we're kind of able to be in this community together. So it's a lot of fun. And CONfessionals is in there exclusively. You can watch it. Every Monday, a new episode is released.
Okay.
And, of course, you can go back and watch the earlier episodes as well that are going to be broadcast there.
Now, did you create Anime Unlocked or yourself? Or
I'm involved with it.
You're involved with
I'm
it.
involved
I
with
thought you
it.
were by chance the mastermind behind it.
I'm involved with it, I'll say that.
No, that's
Yes.
completely fair. That's
Yeah.
completely fair. I'm also glad that you were able to make it here because
Absolutely.
No, I'm serious. Like to Jafax, because like you had an incident a while ago because it looked like Bryce Papenbrook was going to consume you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Pro ZD.
Yeah, that sketch that was helping to promote
Anime Unlocked.
Like, and I ran into that guy today, the one whose YouTube channel. I was like, I recognize
He's
you.
here,
Yes.
Sung Wong, and I hope I'm not butchering his name, but Sung Wong Cho is his name, and the guy is freaking hysterical.
That was a great. But like I said, I'm glad you were able to escape.
I
Bryce.
escaped
you only
Bryce.
Had 3 stars.
I was a 3-star. Bryce was a 5-star. I escaped, luckily. I'm excited because ProZD's here. I'm going to meet him for the first time
Nice.
here in person, so I'm looking forward to meeting him.
He seemed very nice when I interacted with him.
Great.
Briefly. But for those who haven't seen that, please try to go. What was this YouTube channel?
ProZD
Look
is
that
his
up.
channel. Just go to YouTube and search ProZD. It's PRO and then a capital Z and a D, and you'll find his stuff. It's absolutely hysterical.
And look up the sketch with David Vincent and Bryce Papenbrook to promote Anime Unlocked.
Yes.
And that's all I have to say about that. It's short. It's like less than a minute, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny. And also, please come check out Anime Unlocked. It really is a fun community, and the whole purpose behind it is to make it something special that's not being done and something that's going to be fun for everyone involved.
All right. You also have another community. You have your own fan club. What is the name
do.
of that?
My fan club is run. It's called the Windor Panthers. It's run by a wonderful gal up out of
Tan.
Canada, Michelle Tan,
And Roy Benavides.
and Roy Benavides.
So that actually ties into my next question.
Yes.
When did you first meet either one of them?
I actually met Michelle Tan because I was teaching a voiceover course. And in Michelle had friended me on Facebook under my regular page, and I was doing I don't remember how exactly we came into contact, but I was teaching an online voiceover course, and Michelle had popped in to the online voiceover course, and we kind of corresponded that way a little bit, and then we just became friends over time. And then I had done a convention in Montreal called Otakuthon. And Michelle came to the convention. We met in person and became fast friends. And so we've been friends ever since. Kind of same situation with Roy Benavides, where he and I met through Facebook. I met him in Texas at AzeliaCon, which is a Tales-based convention a few years ago. And he and I became fast friends. Michelle and Roy were friends, and so they went together and decided, hey, let's create a fan club.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually reached out to Michelle when I was doing research on you to see if I
Oh.
could find any fun facts. So, Michelle, I do appreciate
Yes.
you helping me out. So, thank you very much.
El
I certainly wanted to
Presidente.
certainly
Yes.
wanted to give you a shout out. So,
Absolutely.
as we're wrapping this up, what's new that you're allowed to talk about that NDAs will not get in the way?
Yes.
Or what's new that you would like to promote besides Anime Unlocked and CONfessionals?
Gosh, I would say, here's the thing, guys, and I think I don't even need to explain it, but of course we have non-disclosure agreements, which means that there are projects that we're working on that we can't talk about. I do have those, and unfortunately I can't
Well, I'm not
talk
asking
about
for
it. And
those,
I've
though.
got some cool stuff that is coming up that I would love to be able to talk about. If you're a Street Fighter fan, on the what is it, the Switch? Nintendo Switch?
Yes.
Nintendo Switch came out with Street Fighter 2. It's a throwback to the old Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2 Ultra
Yeah.
with Violent Ken and
Yes.
Evil Ryu.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you can actually hear me in that Street Fighter as the announcer, so you can hear
Oh, no
me
kidding.
going, round one, fight! and so I got to go in and do that voice for that particular video game, which I thought was amazing because I loved that video game when it was out, the original, and so that the fact that I got to go in and do that voice was pretty awesome.
That's not your first time dancing with Street Fighter since you were
No,
T-Hawk.
yeah, I was T-Hawk in Street Fighter 4 and thereafter, but so I was super stoked to be a part of that. As far as stuff that I can talk about, unfortunately, I'm under NDA, so I can't really mention
Fair
anything. Other than Anime Unlocked, I would say please do join us. Come to Anime Unlocked because we've actually got more stuff coming out, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff where we're going to be doing little shows and things like that that are going to be directly interacting with the fans as well. So stay tuned to Anime Unlocked. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So is that where you would like for your fans to follow you is on?
Yeah,
Anime
I
Unlocked?
would say you can follow me on Twitter it's just at David Vincent, VA for voice actor. So please follow me on Twitter, and then come find me and a whole bunch of my friends and colleagues in Anime Unlocked.
And final question: what would you like to say to your fans throughout the years?
I would love to say to my fans throughout the years, thank you guys so much for everything that you do. You have no idea how much you mean to us. And it is an absolute privilege to be able to do what we do, and we just love you guys to death, and we just thank you for doing what you do, because as you know, together we get to do just amazing stuff together, both as fans and as actors. So thank you guys for doing what you do.
Well, David, thank you very much for this interview. Well, folks, this is Joe from MIGeekScene once again at Jafax with
Awesome.
David Vincent.
Yes.
Take it easy.
All right. Bye, guys.